October 11th, 1984. At a formal ceremony in Stockholm, King Carl Gustaf of Sweden presents the Nobel Prize in Literature. The Swedish Academy has decided to award it to Czech poet, writer, journalist and translator Jaroslav Seifert.
Bror Jaroslav Seifert representerar fadern.
Gravely ill and 83 years old at the time, Seifert is unable to attend the ceremony in person. His daughter accepts the award on his behalf. Still, this remains a historic moment for Czechoslovakia. Seifert is only the second Czech to receive a Nobel Prize, after chemist Jaroslav Seifert. Yet the ruling communist regime not only fails to celebrate the achievement, but reacts with clear displeasure. Czech newspapers publish only 2 brief sentences on the event, and Slovak papers just 1. At that time, Jaroslav Seifert had fallen out of favor. Jaroslav Seifert was born on September 23, 1901, into a poor family on the outskirts of Prague. There, he completed elementary school and later enrolled at a grammar school. His childhood in working-class suburb of the capital would strongly shape both his future political views and his literary work. It was his grandfather, Antonín Boruta, a cultural organizer in nearby Kralupy, who sparked Seifert's love for literature. Young Jaroslav spent every summer with him, and it was there that his first attempts at writing took shape. Writing eventually consumed him so fully that at the age of 16, he decided to leave school and devote himself entirely to his passion. Soon after, the young poet's talent caught the attention of Josef Hora, a respected poet and journalist who published Seifert's works in various leftist newspapers, and they caused quite a stir. At just 18 years old, Seifert was already making a strong impression. Dear reader, pausing on this page, let stillness calm your inner rage, that jagged image full of strife. It is a city, it is life. For man, like flowers, feels the same. So do not crush, nor tear, nor shame. City and Tears was Seifert's debut poetry collection. It was published in the same year the left-leaning poet joined the newly formed Communist Party of Czechoslovakia and became a regular contributor to the party's newspaper. The City and Tears of the title refers to working-class Prague, especially its impoverished outskirts, and Seifert's verses express a longing for a world free of poverty and hatred, and for a better life for all. At the age of 22, Seifert takes a creative leap. He is considered a leading figure of the Czechoslovak Avant-garde and becomes a founding member of the group known as Devitsil. This association of avant-garde artists, musicians and writers aimed to promote a more just social order. But above all, it sought to establish new artistic directions. While early Devitsil works were often influenced by magical realism, in which myths and miracles enter the real world, in 1924 the group introduced a distinctly Czech style, poetism. This was conceived as the opposite of grim proletarian poetry. It sought to free art from the burdens of everyday life and view the world with playfulness and optimism. Among the high points of this movement are the well-known Capricious Summer by Vladislav Vančura and Seifert's own collection, On the Waves of TSF, titled after the French abbreviation for wireless telegraphy. Girls bathed in the sea on a Sunday morn, their hair and the tide as one were born. A sailor high in the mast looks wide and hums a song on the changing tide. Wave upon wave they curl and glide and die where the shore and sea collide. During the 1920s, Jaroslav Seifert ranks among the most prolific writers in Czechoslovakia. In addition to composing his own poetry, he translates from French works by Apollinaire and Verlaine and serves as editor for several literary journals. His private life is also flourishing. In 1928, he marries Marie Ulrikova, a 29-year-old clerk. The couple later has 2 children, a daughter, Jana, and a son, Jaroslav. Although one of poetism's goals was to break free from all politics, Seifert never concealed his civic convictions. In March 1929, following the Communist Party's 5th Congress, He signed, together with writers like Olbracht, Neumann, and Vanchura, the so-called Manifesto of the Seven. The text, titled Communist Writers to Communist Workers, warned against the Bolshevization of the party under its new leadership, headed by Stalinist leader Klement Gottwald. The response came swiftly. Seifert, along with the other signatories, was expelled from the party. A year later, Jaroslav Seifert joins the Social Democratic Party and begins contributing to its newspaper Pravo Lidu. And, as expected, he responds to the dark end of the 1930s, the rise of German Nazism, the Munich Agreement, and the occupation of Czechoslovakia. His poetry collection, Turn Off the Lights, was a direct reaction to the Munich Agreement, while The Fan of Božena Němcová and Clothed in Light became sources of comfort for many during the years of occupation. A touch of time has veiled in gentle shade all that was lost, consumed by silent blight. Yet still your fan remains, and with it stayed your name and sense of Czech Spring's distant light. After the war, Seifert praised the Soviet Red Army in his collection The Helmet of Clay. But then came the communist coup of 1948, and Seifert fell into disfavor, branded a traitor to communist ideals. Yet it wasn't just his past that made him suspect. In the years following the communist rise to power, Seifert openly criticized the government and defended artistic freedom. The response was swift. When he published the long poem Song of Viktorka, which intertwined the tragic fate of Viktorka from the grandmother with the tragedy of its author, Božena Němcová, the communists condemned it as unsocialist poetry. State publishers either stopped accepting Seifert's work or, at best, released it in very limited print runs. A turning point, if only a brief one, came in 1954. That year, Seifert published a collection titled My Mother, a true gem of Czech poetry. In it, the author returns to his boyhood, recalling his childhood and the hardships of life in the poor Žižkov district of Prague. His mother becomes the ultimate symbol of kindness and love, but also of strength and quiet courage with which she bore the burdens of her life. When spring arrived, the trees outside, in sunshine, bloomed in glowing pride. My mother, quiet as the foam, turned to the window, tears at home. Why do you weep? What brings you pain? Tell me what grief you can't contain. I'll tell you, love, but not just yet. When trees no longer bloom, you'll get. The collection, filled with simple yet moving verses, became an extraordinary success with readers. So much so that even the authorities were forced to respond. Seifert was awarded the Klement Gottwald State Prize, and his previously rejected works, including Song of Viktorka, were reissued. A decade later, during the political thaw, Seifert was granted the title of National Artist. But another turning point was already on the horizon. On September 9, 1968, less than 3 weeks after the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, Jaroslav Seifert sharply condemned the arrival of Soviet troops. He ended his televised address with the words, "Just as we placed the first tank that arrived in May 1945 on a pedestal, we shall also put on display the last one to leave our land." Seifert once again fell out of favor. He was allowed to publish new work only in the second half of the 1970s, as the regime, mindful of his popularity, sought ways to manage the beloved poet. Agreements that his publishing in exchange for refraining from public appearances and petition signing were repeatedly broken by Seifert. On the contrary, he was among the first signatories of Charter 77, the major petition against communism. And his next poetry collections were published primarily in exile editions. Then came 1984. Materials for the Nobel Prize Commission, including the manuscript of Seifert's memoir called All the Beauties of the World, were sent to Stockholm by sociologist Jiřina Šiklova. In its official statement, the Swedish Academy wrote, "His countrymen read and cherish him. He is a national poet who can speak to his readers like no one else." The news that Jaroslav Seifert had been awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature came as a complete surprise. As mentioned earlier, the communist regime was anything but pleased. Among the public, however, it sparked great excitement and reignited interest in his work. For the poet himself, after years of marginalization, it must have been a deeply satisfying recognition, a grace note to the final chapter of his life. A year and a quarter after receiving the Nobel Prize, on January 10, 1986, Jaroslav Seifert passed away at a Prague's hospital. His funeral became a quiet protest against the communist regime. Thousands came to pay their respects. In the end, the Swedish Academy's words proved true. He really was a national poet, bound to Czech tradition as tightly as one can be. And the lines from one of his most beautiful poems, Song of the Native Land, could well serve as his epitaph. Lovely, like the flowers on a jar. Heavy, heavy as one's deepest sin, not the kind that's ever cast to wind. And when your sleep draws near from afar, its bitter soil will fall hard on your skin.